Unchurned is presented by UpdateAI.
And so this is kind of a way that you're able to measure the success of your group as well, is the metric of how many requests really are impacting the product roadmap. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's very interesting. Like if you ask a product person, let's say you tell a product person, hey, we completed 15% of the requests on the feedback board this year, right? They're going to tell you, wow, that is amazing. 15% of the requests, incredible. We are gods, right? And then you go to client facing and you say, product completed 15% of the requests on the feedback board. And they're like, nobody listens to us.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about us. And it's a wild mismatch in expectations that you also have to manage.
Welcome, everybody, to this special episode of Unchurned. I'm your host, Josh Schachter. I'm going solo today. Christy and John, well, they weren't invited. Don't tell them. But I was so excited to talk to Leah Bauman, who is the head of enterprise product alignment. She's going to tell us what that means at monday.com. Monday, which is just crushing it in the SaaS world. Last I checked. And, you know, UpdateAI, my company, is all about voice of the customer. Like our thesis behind everything we do is how much the customer matters and customer centricity, customer. And my background is in product. And I found out about Leah a couple months ago. It's probably Leah, right? You're Israeli, so it's probably Leah.
Yes.
About Leah a couple months ago and what she's doing at Monday. I was like, wow, I have to talk to her because she, like, the structure they put and the resources they put behind customer insights and aligning with product per her title are second to none. I haven't seen that yet in the space. So, Leah, thank you so much for joining me on this program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, for anybody who's, hiding under a rock, and we're in 2025 now, what is Monday? What do you do? Who do you sell to? But like really quickly, because everybody knows.
Okay. So firstly, that's very flattering. I hope that everybody knows.
Well, I see it in the subway on the 456 every day. So, I know.
That helps everybody know. I actually have a friend who was at my house yesterday, and he told me that even though he's pretty much off the grid and doesn't really use any social media or anything like that, he knows what Monday is. And I thought that was very impressive. For those of you who don't know, monday.com is a platform that runs all core aspects of work. It's a work management platform that gives anyone the power to build and improve how their organization runs. So that's a little bit about Monday.
That's so broad. What's like the top use case that people love about Monday?
That's a great question. I think it's hard to pick one because we are
What's
running...
your favorite use case? I'm going to pin you down.
My favorite use case is customer feedback and how we manage that on Monday. I also am pretty obsessed with our projects and portfolio and how we've really made it easier for people who manage projects to not hate their lives. So I think that's pretty impressive.
I think that's what I saw on the subway, by the way, is the tagline, making it easier for people that manage projects to not hate their lives. One person at a time.
So suggesting that to marketing tomorrow.
I mean, I feel like, in the middle of January here, as we record this in the winter of New York, like that would really resonate, Voice of the customer right there. Okay. So your title's not voice of the customer. You are the head of enterprise product alignment. What does that mean?
Okay, so if you haven't heard of product alignment before, you should not feel too bad because...
I think nobody has heard, just to be clear. Nobody has heard of product alignment before.
Maybe no. Definitely, we've been ringing the bell on product alignment for a couple of years now, so we have a few people who've heard of it for sure.
Okay.
I also had the chance to present on it at our user conference this year in London and then in New York. I'll tell you a little bit about the role and what was the origin of the role. Maybe I often jokingly refer to myself as the big accounts lawyer. My team manages the highest tier of product related escalations that we are predicting will cause us large amounts of ARR or annual recurring revenue from across the life cycle of an account, whether it's from new business expansions, implementations, or even downgrade and churn. And we manage a lot of the feedback that comes in from our larger customers and from the types of customers that we want to be attracting as a business.
Okay. So you're the VIP, or you're the team for the VIP customers to take their feedback and to facilitate it with product to make sure it's listened to?
It's also for current clients, but it's also about understanding why we aren't attracting the type of clients we want to attract, what features might
Ah,
be missing, what's the feedback that's coming in that stops people from using Monday for use cases we think they should be using Monday for.
for people that are not yet clients.
For people that are not yet clients. So clients and potential clients, and maybe you're not a VIP client today because you're not in our, top segment, but you're an enterprise company and we believe that we should have a bigger foothold. What's your feedback? What's stopping you from growing? What's stopping you from executing?
Yeah. I love that. I mean, something that we all struggle with or we could all improve upon is making sure that like everybody in SaaS is that whether you're a client or not, that everybody out there knows exactly what you could be using the platform to leverage, right? Everybody thinks about UpdateAI as being a really good AI meeting note taker. I'm like, no. That was the mousetrap. That was so 2021. How about this, and this? And it sounds like that's kind of what your group is like, where are there misconceptions or product education that can be required? I'm not saying that's the program you're running, like at scale or anything,
We
but
have
you're
an
doing the
enablement
research.
team. We have
You have
an
an enablement team.
enablement
Yeah.
team. If it exists in the platform and you should be doing it, probably the enablement team is teaching our client facing teams how to support you.
Yeah.
If you have feedback and there are gaps and the product can't do what you want it to do
Yeah.
and you want to talk about it, that's us.
Yeah.
That's product alignment.
Okay. And did you carve this out for yourself, this role? And tell me a little bit about the organization, like the group, like, because I think you guys sit under CRO. Is that right? Tell us like a little bit about the role, the layout, and how you got to this role because you were in sales before.
I was in sales before. So let's talk a little bit of the origin of the role. The origin of my role as head of enterprise product alignment, it's a bit of a long story. So I'm going to tell you sort of a condensed version. You can double tap on anything in here and we can talk about it, but I'll give you the high level. I started my tech career in sales, which I really love and really enjoy. I came into the sales team at Monday, and I'm going to age myself here, when the sales team was almost brand new. We had like 3 people on it. And
At the whole company?
no, at the sales team. The
At the,
sales team
but
was,
within the whole company, only 3 people in sales?
there were only 3 people in sales and there were only 74 people in the company. For context, we're over 3,000, 2,500 employees. Will be over 3,000 employees pretty soon.
Oh my God. How do I join a giant company that early on? Well, I guess I did found one, but like, yeah,
You
cool.
guess.
Yeah.
You guess. When
Yeah.
I was applying for Monday, I also applied for a job at Gong. Do you know Gong?
No, never heard of them.
You're joking.
Yeah. I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So either one of those, I think, would have been a good bet, and I think that Gong would have been really solid. But I went with Monday because I was in love with the product.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and obviously for me, it was a great choice. But it at an early stage, you're always kind of guessing.
It's a guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so I threw you off track. So so you were in sales. You joined Monday very early on.
Yes. And when at most tech companies, the sales team is kind of the leader. And at
At all
Monday,
tech companies. Yeah. Keep going.
so at Monday, it was very different. The sales team was not the king at all. In fact, every team in the company seemed to be like all in on the self-serve funnel, which is our no-touch funnel. And they really believed that the correct way for Monday to take over the world is going to be that people just come in and sign up, and you don't need a sales team to sell it. So we were at the bottom of the food chain in the company when I first started, which was a very
Interesting.
like it was kind of like a very strange feeling for a salesperson, I would say. And we were trying to close bigger accounts on the sales team than what were being closed in our self-serve funnel. And the sales team, which started to grow a little bit, had clients and leads that were telling us all day, every day, why they wouldn't close or why they wouldn't grow, and why they weren't satisfied and what use cases they wanted to manage in Monday and why they couldn't.
Yep.
But the sales and CS really had no way of communicating that to product.
Yep.
And I don't think I can describe how frustrating it was to be a top salesperson and then a top account manager who absolutely knew what features would lead to explosive growth without having a channel to actualize any of that feedback.
Well, go ahead. Describe it. Try to describe it in words, in one word. How did it feel to have that you knew it, but it just, you couldn't actualize it?
It was frustrating. It was very, very frustrating. And to me, it felt like I just couldn't connect the output of what was coming on the roadmap to the needs that I was seeing in the field.
Yep.
And it was true across the sales team that we felt like we knew, and the CS team, by the way, because there was barely a difference back then between sales and CS. There was like a big crossover between those two roles.
Yeah, that's Leah's way of saying that there was no CS. It was salespeople that were operating.
I did my own CS, and it made me a better salesperson,
Well,
and it made me a better human. I'm just going to say
it does. Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
And we felt like we knew what the product needed, and we felt like enterprise was the right way forward for us as a business, and it felt like nobody really wanted to listen. And then output would come on the roadmap. We'd be expected to sell that output, and it didn't align with the needs we were seeing in the field. And
where were you? Nobody was listening. Where were you talking? Like, were these Slack channels set up? Was this a biweekly, meeting or huddle? Like, did they have Slack back then? Oh, like
there was nothing. There was nothing. First of all, we communicated almost solely on WhatsApp at this point. We didn't have Slack
like
yet.
A nice international startup.
Yes, exactly. There was a beer night once every 2 weeks where you could voice your displeasure, and we did. But nothing, like things don't always move after you say something at a social gathering, right? And then you would kind of have like teams where there's a salesperson who needs something to close a deal, and he's playing football with one of the developers, and the next thing you know, his item's in a sprint, and that doesn't feel like a very smart way for us to make decisions. It was frustrating, right?
Yeah.
And product alignment really started as a side project when we were still under 300 employees. I think I had just closed our first $500,000 account.
Amazing. Do you remember who it was with?
I do, but I can't.
You can't
say their name.
Just say a company that rhymes with it.
I will tell you that they make video games.
Okay, cool. All right. So Activision, you sign on board. I'm just making a random one. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm not.
And at that point, this was a client who was telling me exactly what they needed to grow, along with many other clients. And we finally formed a channel and a meeting to talk about touch feedback, to talk about the feedback coming in from clients and from
you
prospects.
Spearheaded this to create the channels and the recurring meeting.
At the time, it was spearheaded by product. who needed to start aligning with someone on the sales team. I spearheaded it from the CRO side. We had one representative from sales, one from CS, one from product, one from R&D, and one from design. So we together represented all of the facets of like how you make decisions. Does the sales team need it? Does the CS team need it? And is it possible? How much is it going to cost us in story points?
So, we have some questions planned here to keep going with stuff on the culture today of voice of the customer and why it's so critical at Monday. And I do want to get into all that, but I want to keep on diving into this piece too, like this origin story, because a lot of the people out there listening are probably from companies of under 300 people. And they're probably in a situation right now where they could be spawning this up themselves, or they want to, or they tried and it didn't work, right? So, hey, everybody, it's Josh. I'm taking a quick break from the podcast to tell you a bit about UpdateAI. I started UpdateAI to solve two major challenges for CS teams. The first is that we save CSMs 4 to 5 hours per week with our productivity through AI. Secondly, we give leaders a window into all the conversations across each account and the entire portfolio. So we help knowledge transfer, we help increase the coverage model of your CS teams, and we help you detect emerging patterns in what your customers are telling your CSMs across all the risks, product feedback, advocacy moments, and expansion opportunities. So come check us out at www.updateai. It's completely free to sign up and trial. A lot of the people out there listening are probably from companies of under 300 people. And they're probably in a situation right now where they could be spawning this up themselves, or they want to, or they tried and it didn't work, right? So I'd love to understand, like, in short, what worked and what didn't work, but maybe like how you structured some of these cross-functional conversations in the early days.
Okay, so we started with a board. We're Monday, so we used Monday, but if you don't use Monday, you could use whatever work management tool you use, or even an Excel spreadsheet. And the first place is having a submission, like a log of what are people asking for, and just tracking like what are clients saying, how many clients are asking for the same thing. That's sort of like your source of truth for feedback. Right. And it all starts with making sure that you're documenting it, because the worst thing that happens in the tech companies is he says this, she says that, one salesperson says, and you're not aggregating data over time that allows you to give weight to specific features. So just having it all in one place and being able to count how many times a feedback is coming and what is that feedback, and then sitting in a room and saying, from a product and dev and design perspective, do we understand the request, right? Do we know what they're asking for, how it connects to real world use cases, having a conversation around it? That's the first step. And then having a developer say it's t-shirt size it, right? Saying it's small, it's medium, it's large, can give you a feeling for, is this something I could just put into a sprint during a quarter, or does it need to wait for a quarterly kickoff to get added in? Or maybe it's so big that it's a yearly item and we need the buy-in of a higher level who's dictating a yearly strategy for this. So just t-shirt sizing can really get you an understanding of where you might want to report on that. And that made a really big difference for us.
Okay. Helpful. Okay. So, how has that evolved? How has the culture of voice of the customer evolved from those early days, and what's kind of been the time horizon too? We're talking about 6 months or 6 years. And how's it evolved to where it is today?
So it is a really great question. I would I would tell you that like the question is more, how many times and how many different ways have we systemized the process for VOC? Monday is one of the fastest growing SaaS companies out there, and we have outgrown our processes at least every 2 years since I've started, which challenges us to level up and create something that's better every couple of years. So over the years, like the VOC has evolved and the culture of the VOC has evolved, but one thing has really stayed the same, which is that Monday is feedback obsessed. And the thing that never changes is that we really want to hear the feedback and the insights coming from the field. And we believe that this is what is going to make our product win out over
Yeah.
everything else, which is understanding the problems that clients have, and surfacing them to the people who are building the product. So I think that hasn't changed, but the structure has changed over the years quite significantly. So a piece of our VOC, a very significant piece of our VOC, sits inside of the support team. And that's the team that answers Zendesk tickets. So they have a system for pulling insights out of Zendesk tickets and slicing and dicing what are clients asking for in tickets, right? And that is really helpful for a certain type of user. But as accounts get bigger and you work with specific personas inside of accounts who are decision makers, who are more
What tool?
influential.
I'm apologize for cutting you off. Like a delayed reaction here. What tool are they using to? Because I think this will be interesting for other folks as well. It's not UpdateAI, but what tool are you guys using to synthesize all the insights from that support layer from the Zendesk tickets?
That's a great question. We are using Interpret, which is a system that we just started using, I think, about 6 months ago. We had a tagging system in Zendesk, and we moved over to Interpret to put that layer of AI on top of everything and to be able to slice and dice and pull the insights out much better.
Great. Great.
Um,
So for all those listening out there, go visit one of my competitors, Interpret. I'm an equal opportunity podcast host here. But no, I think it's helpful for people to know how you're actually doing these things. So that's for the longer tail. Now you were talking about the more higher touch, larger accounts that have a little bit more of the white glove service and perhaps more of like the stated needs from those interactions. Tell us about that.
So you have a persona inside of an account that makes decisions, that makes growth decisions, that makes decisions about what the team is going to use and invest in. And those are the personas that our account managers and customer success managers are more working with. They're also a persona who's much less likely to write in a ticket because they
Right.
are working directly with customer success and account managers. Um, and they're not probably going to go into the community and vote for things, which is another great channel of the VOC, but you miss out on the more strategic personas who don't spend time in communities and tickets.
Yeah.
So that's where your client facing teams really come in, and they need a place to put feedback that is different, that says, I spoke to a strategic persona in the account and they told me that if there was this, they would be able to do whatever it is they're trying to do, and X amount of users would be affected. We need that from a product perspective to come in a structured format, right? It has to come in a structured format. It has to come in with numbers attached to it. It has to connect to your CRM so you can see which clients are asking for what. And I'm like going to shamelessly tell you that Monday.com changed our lives in enabling us to use a form to catch the feedback from the client facing teams, to integrate with our CRM and pull in metadata from which client is asking for what and how much is that client paying us and what's the size of the company, how much opportunity is there, right?
Yeah.
And to give product managers on the other side the tools that they need to prioritize between literally thousands of requests that are coming in. So the form goes to the board. The board is organized by use case, as are our product domains. So it's very clear which feedback belongs to which product person, which is also key to this whole system working. And then from the product manager side, they're responsible for going through their items on a cadence and filling in whether or not it's on the roadmap or if it's being considered, to give more information about why it's not on the roadmap, which is something clients really like to have access to. I don't know why. A no is a no, but when they hear the why behind the no, it often helps them contextualize.
Oh, there's so much research behind that, by the way, that if you say the words because after, like, it just completely, like, it completely converts people's, like, attitude towards it, right?
It does.
They did a test, I think, some professor of somebody wanting to, like, skip the line of, like, a Xerox copy machine in the office place, right? And they're like, "Can I skip?" Just asking, "Can I skip the line?" And like, "No, f you. I'm waiting in line here." And then then the person says, like, "Can I skip the line because I need to wait less time?" And they're like, "Oh, okay." All you said was, like, the obvious, that you wanted to wait, but just because you use the words because and the why, that helps to. I've just digressed. I apologize, Leah.
But I agree with you. There's something there that when you explain to them your line
Yeah,
of thinking behind why, and it gives tools to a
yeah,
customer success manager
yeah.
to manage what's often a very difficult relationship of being the person who always has to say no, that wasn't
Yeah, you're right.
making it onto our roadmap.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember one of our advisors early days, Amelia Danzica, was talking about, like, no jitsu is the game that CSMs have to always play. How do you, the art of saying no, but that's part of the art, is like giving in your arsenal the rationale, the why. No,
Yes.
because of this, right? Or no, not now, however. Um, okay. So what you just described, that workflow, that's current day. That's your current day for capturing.
That is one of the mechanisms we use for capturing current day feedback.
Okay.
That board is huge. All the product managers use it for road mapping and like to understand what are the biggest requests coming in from strategic personas inside of accounts that are managed by our field teams.
Now, are you able to, this is a pipe dream for many companies that I talk to. Are you able to close the loop at all and get back to those customers when there has been a request that 6 months later was completed?
So it's a great question. And the answer is yes, although we rely very heavily on the client facing teams to be the ones who close the loop. In Monday, one of the KPIs we have for the feedback board is how many feedbacks actually make it onto the roadmap.
Mm.
So the feedback board is connected to our release board, and there's a connection between those two. And my team will manually update on the feedback board when something has been released. They make that connection so that they can see more details about it or whatever. And there's an automation that pings anyone who made that request and says, hey, this request is now released and closed. Go check it out on the release board and talk to your clients about it.
Oh, I love it so much. And so this is kind of a way that you're able to measure the success of your group as well, is the metric of how many requests really are impacting the product roadmap. Is that right? Or
That's
not?
right.
Yeah.
That's right. And it's very interesting. Like if you ask a product person, let's say you tell a product person, hey, we completed 15% of the requests on the feedback board this year, right? They're going to tell you, wow, that is amazing. 15% of the requests, incredible. We are gods, right? And then you go to client facing and you say, product completed 15% of the requests on the feedback board. And they're like, nobody listens to us.
Yeah.
Nobody cares about us. And it's a wild mismatch in expectations that you also have to manage, right?
Yeah.
As part of aligning between those two groups, what does success actually look like?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago this thought that just kind of came to me overnight. I hadn't put too much, like, thought into it, but why doesn't CS report, or excuse me, why doesn't product report to, like, the chief customer officer? You ever think about that? That would ensure that what the customers want is prioritized by product rather than just new feature releases of things that are not necessarily validated yet. Now, I understand that you might curb a little bit of innovation. People don't know what they want, et cetera, et cetera. You could have a tiger team outside for that. But that was one thought that came to mind.
So I also had that thought, that not exactly that thought, but very definitely a similar line of thinking for a long time. And years of watching the relationship and have turned me into a believer that we cannot answer client requests exactly as they're framed and build the best product out there.
Yeah.
And I could give you an example of like, from the early days, I had been managing feedback client requests for probably a year at this point, and I had a laundry list. I had a list. It was prioritized. Like, I knew what the top requests were. I had validation from teams across the company, from clients. I had numbers. I had everything. And then they said they're going to go in and do a hackathon, and like they can't going to come out 2 days later and get excited. Everything's going to be like, it's going to be amazing. They sat us down 2 days later, and I'm like, oh my God, which one of my requests is on the list? And they came out with a feature nobody had ever asked for. And I took it so personally. I was like, how could you do this to me? Like,
Yeah.
I did everything you asked me to do, and you went in a room and you came out with something no one has ever asked for. The feature was our forms feature, right? It was answering so many of the requests in a way that I could not wrap my head around in the first moment that I saw it, right?
Yeah.
And they solved a problem that our clients had in a way that no one ever asked for. No one ever would think to ask for that, because
Right.
it's a bit of product genius, but it actually crossed the checkbox on so many of the requests that I had. And there are so many examples of that. Oh my gosh. The biggest argument I think I ever had was when we came out with the llama farm. You know our llama farm?
No. Educate me.
Let me tell you that no one ever asked for a llama farm. Okay. No one ever asked for a llama farm. It was another one of those hackathon items. Basically, you have the ability in Monday to create a widget that represents all of your statuses as llamas, and the color and size of the llama relates to the status color and priority of the tasks. You're in product, so you're smiling. Okay. You get it. It's fun. It's engaging. I was like devastated. I was like, nobody ever asked for this. Nobody wants this. Like, we have actual clients with real life use cases who ask us for things. You have the nerve to go in a room and come out with a llama farm. Like, I can't even look at you guys right now. Okay. And it was like a kind of a big fight. And it was actually turned out to be our founders feature. And
Oh, well, there you go.
yeah, no, listen, he was like, you have no imagination. And I was like, no one asked me to have imagination. I came in to manage these requests, and I'm not doing that. But over the years, the amount of clients who have told me that the llama farm has made a difference in the buying process of Monday. I never would have predicted that with all of the data I had, with all of the clients I spoke to. Nothing could have ever prepared me that in the buying process, having something that's engaging and fun would actually help them to close when you have competitors who do things that are sometimes feel similar.
So funny. That's so,
Enterprise
yeah.
clients
Yeah.
love the llama farm.
Yeah. Everybody likes personality, I think. And so it's an injection, which is probably what your founder had seen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not about always like giving a request as a client asks for it. It's about deeply understanding the problem and letting the product be geniuses and fix it in a way that is new, that maybe you didn't think of. And I think that's for me is the power of product alignment. It's
Yeah.
like helping orient them towards problems and not towards feature requests.
So I want to wrap up with this. What's the number one? I read a book on podcasting recently. I shouldn't ask you what's the number one. That puts more pressure on the response. What is like a key piece of advice that you would give to companies? Again, let's go into a company of 200 people or below that clearly are not going to be as advanced. Well, you know what? Maybe they might be more advanced as smaller companies, right? Because they might actually be more tethered together. But anyways, a company that's not as advanced in analyzing voice of the customer as yourselves, what would be the first step you would take to systematizing this?
Okay. The first step is acknowledging that client facing and product teams need each other and they have to work together, and it has to be intentional. That's the first step. And I think a lot of companies stop. They never get to that place. And product works in a silo and customer facing works in a silo. They have totally different KPIs, and you have teams that are moving further and further away. So first step is saying we want to be in a joint task force. We want to understand the client better, and we want to build the best product for the client. So I think that's the first step. The second step is creating a source of truth where your client facing teams can record the things they're hearing, not from every client, but from strategic clients, from strategic personas, and to give them a place to put that down and a task force that's actually looking at it and prioritizing between the things that are coming in. And that's the first step.
Love it. We'll leave it there for now. Leah Bauman, Head of Enterprise Product Alignment at Monday.com, having been there for 7.5 years through some hyper growth of the company, some really successful times there, and wishing you the best this year for even more continued success.
Thank you. You as well. And I hope that this will be a year of collaboration for us.
Yes, absolutely.